decent human being. And he's in that period of his leadership now where, because of the way the American system works, he no longer has to figure out the politics of things in the sense of re-election. He's got 4 years to make an incredible mark on the country he leads and indeed on the world because of the status of the presidency of the United States, and I believe he'll do that.
Can you pass on a message from me?
I'll try to.
We'd love him to come to the Woodford Festival. We've got a spare tent for him just on the other side of Bill's bar. Yeah.
Right, we'll work on that. We'll work on him coming to Woodford. We did get him round the country a bit, including to a hangar in Darwin to say hello to troops and all the rest of it. Where, we're out shaking hands with people and it was so hot. One of the actual American security, the Secret Service, fainted because of the heat. So I would have to assure him that here at Woodford it would be a bit more temperate than Darwin that time of year.
Yeah, look, it never rains here.
Well, we could tell him that, but I think a quick look at the records might reveal a different truth.
If you had your time over again, let me put it this way. It's a frustrating game and you've achieved a lot of legislation. Unbelievable. Nobody would deny it. What haven't you achieved that you wished you had?
Oh, we've got more to do. I've got more to do. And the two things we call the electability. And I know you get a lot of people from overseas and a lot of people from interstate here, but to the Queenslanders in the crowd, we need your help with that here in Queensland to make sure the state government works with us. You're missing out on the launch on the 1st of July, and I don't want you to keep missing out in the future. So get the National Disability Insurance Scheme started. And then the other thing I've really got a big focus on this year is delivering on further education reforms. We had a fair old wake-up call in some international testing that came in at the end of last year. We can make sure our kids get a world-class education. We have brought change to a number of schools around the country, schools you can walk into now that are different places than they were a few years ago. What we've got to do now is take it and upscale it and give it to every school and make a difference to every school. And I'm absolutely determined that we're battling through on that during the course of this year as well. So 2 big things, whilst we do everything else that's necessary to keep, jobs flowing and the economy doing what it needs to do, but 2 big ambitions for 2013 before we get round to winning that election.
All right. The protection of the natural environment is a big thing, from coal seam gas to protection of the forests, the poisoning of our cities, pollution generally. We know there's been a lot of improvements and changes over the years. To me, it doesn't seem fast enough. Is there anything in the pipeline in terms of protection of the national environment? Your feelings on coal seam gas?
Well, I'm sitting on it. It was really Bob's era that brought to the fore issues like the Franklin Dam and Kakadu and so many important environmental legacies. So that's our heritage coming from Bob's era as Prime Minister. Apart from carbon pricing, the big issues we've been focused on, and we are making some differences to, marine parks, biggest set of marine parks anywhere in the world because of how precious our marine environment is. We've got national parks and, we've fought hard in many parts of the country to get protection on land. We've turned our eyes to protection for the sea. So marine parks, incredibly important. Murray-Darling, finally, acting as one nation about our major water system and making sure that it's sustainable. And the mouth of that great river is open to the sea and the lower lakes are not turning to acid. which is something we faced during the last drought. Resolving the issues about forestry in Tasmania. It's been long and hard, and it's not done yet. There's work to do in the upper house in Tasmania, but that will make a long-term difference in that state. And then on issues like coal seam gas, which are important for the future, we're the level of government that has the scientific leadership for the nation, that has the great institutions of scientific knowledge like the CSIRO, and we are bringing that scientific knowledge to these land use decisions so that they are informed by the best we have available to make the best long-term decisions for the future.
Bob, you led the most...
Shush.
As the Prime Minister... Bob, you led the most progressive environmental government at the time in Australia's history. Have you got any comments about, since your time in office, how it's all going?
Yes, we made some very, very important decisions, land-breaking decisions, but I always feel that there's always a little bit more that can be done, but I congratulate Julia and her government for what they've done, and in situations which are the same as mine. There's one thing about the Conservative parties in this country. They are not very involved in or convinced about the need for environmental protective action. And I think that's one of the great pities, that there hasn't been a greater degree of general acceptance across the political spectrum. We've got the Greens, of course, and ourselves, but against that we have this range of scepticism or actual negativism. And I think the government is to be congratulated for the fact that in those circumstances, which are no better now than when I was Prime Minister, they have seen the intrinsic necessity of action in these areas. And if you just think about that list that Julia gave you, it's bloody impressive.
I'm sorry, everyone, to do this, but we're out of time, so I'm just going to ask one last question. Do you still enjoy the job, and do you sleep well?
Yes to both. You've got to love it in the sense of the opportunities it gives to make change. I mean, the things that endure. When I'm 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when I'm looking back on being Prime Minister, what I want to be able to say is that I did things that 20, 30 years later I can see making a difference to Australia for the better. So you've got to love that opportunity about it. No matter what else it brings, you've got to love that opportunity for leadership. And I do love that, and I do love it when I get that moment when I can go somewhere, whether it's a school or a hospital, and actually see something that I started there working, making a difference for people today. That's the power in the job, and that's the reward in the job, and they're the things that endure. As for sleeping at night, I do sleep well at night. I'm not someone who tosses and turns. I some days go to bed thinking I could have got night and get
food. What I've been able to drop in, I'm very grateful. But I just needed to say, you'd be all aware of our organisation here and the difficulties we've had over the past few years, particularly with the flood year, that in the last federal elections, the Prime Minister made a promise of a grant of $3 million to our organisation to help us with our infrastructure. It saved us at the time. Would you help me thank her for that? And to conclude, fellow Woodfordians, we'll conclude by helping me thank two great Australians.
And we'll leave the Prime Minister there along with all the people.